Hello and welcome to Oakville Matters. Thanks to your TV, this is our opportunity to talk about the things that matter to Oakville. And one of the things we know matters to Oakville the most is growth and how we will grow. And joining us today to get into that are Nancy Sully, who's the commissioner in charge of our finances, and she's very, very expert on our outstanding finances, and Gabe Charles, who is our planning director. So this is the man who is guiding our navigation through the maze, I'm going to call it, of provincial rules and regulations that govern how we grow. And then we have our own rules and regulations that try to moderate that. Gabe, I want to start with something one of your predecessors once said. One of your predecessors said, got one planning act and one growth plan for the GTAH, and yet you can tell each community apart from each other. So there's a channel or a lane that we have to run in, but there's enough room in the lane that we can all express our local differences. Would you say that's a good place to start?
That's a really good place to start. Oakville has a definite character to it, which I think the people of Oakville really identify with. There's a lot of really unique communities throughout the greater Oakville area, whether it's along the lake and the downtown, or as we get into where the go stations are and along Trafalgar Road, you can really see the transition of growth over the last century and a half. And as we get into to North Oakville, which is our newest community, how even within Oakville, it has transitioned over time. And you can see in the north just the amount of natural area that has been integrated into the community, how the parks are a little bit larger. There's the enhanced walkability that we have through the north. And those are all identifiable features for the residents of Oakville and aspects of the community that they really enjoy. And it is a little bit different than some of the other municipalities that you see throughout the GTA. And I think it's one that Oakville residents are proud of.
Oh, for sure. I think everybody in town appreciates that we seem to have more trees than other people, and I hear from new residents all the time that we have far more trails than they've ever seen anywhere that they've ever lived before. And of course, we have Ontario's first municipal green belt, what we call the Natural Heritage System, which is about 30% of North Oakville. So yeah, we have a lot to build on. One of the things that a lot of people struggle with, that it'd be really good to clear up right off the top, is why do we have to grow, and will we ever be full? And what I'd like you to comment on is it's our reading of the municipal act, and I'm sorry, the planning act and the province's rules and regulations, that you must grow and you're never full. And the good part of the situation is we get to direct growth to where we think it fits best. And I would say to you who are watching that Gabe is the person on whom we rely the most to make sure that we direct it to the right places and keep it out of the places where it doesn't belong. Now, Gabe, what happens when the places we direct it to, like the urban growth center around the Oakville GO station, when it starts filling up? In theory, a place can get full, like an area of town can be full. Only so many, like the urban growth center around the Oakville GO station is meant to have towers. Eventually, there'll be no more space there. Sometime in the next 30, 50 years, there'll be no more space for more towers. And then it'll be notionally full unless you tear one down and build a bigger one. And the danger is that if we don't have places to grow that we can direct growth to, then it'll spill out onto the streets and neighborhoods that we're trying to protect, right?
You're right. And one of the true benefits that Oakville has, that this council had the foresight to approve an urban structure for the town. And our urban structure identifies those centers and corridors where we're going to intensify. One just has to look to Toronto, where some would suggest that that's been built out for decades, but it's one of the hottest real estate markets on the continent, and is constantly going through its phases of redevelopment. As you say, it's a constant rebuild. And so in Oakville, what we are doing is we are taking that mandated growth from the province, who says that throughout the GTA, we have a growth plan that they say we have to plan for a certain population within a planning horizon. So with the current growth plan, we are forecasted to grow in Halton region up to 1.1 million people, 500,000 or so jobs by the year 2051. So for Oakville to take its requisite share of that growth, we need to identify where's the best place that we can do that. And the idea is that we put people where we're going to be having those transit investments, where we have those community amenities, so that we can support the growth of the community in the right locations. If you just allow the barn doors to swing open and have growth go wherever it would like to go, then it starts to really have the unsettling effect of going into our mature established neighborhoods. And that's where you don't want to put it. There are different types of development that you want in certain areas. And when you start to disrupt our mature areas, then you start to lose the character that makes Oakville unique. And so we want to make sure that we're putting the growth and guiding that growth in a way that is responsive to climate change, we're able to get people to move around and not be dependent on a car. And so that means we're putting them into our designated areas within our urban structure. So that includes uptown around Dundas and Trafalgar, that includes Midtown. The newest one will be the Bronte Go major transit station area that we've been working with Halton region to identify and put a certain amount of population there, as well as around our new hospital on Dundas. So those are the areas where we want to be able to direct people in terms of new growth. And those are the areas which we know over the longer term can sustain the population for Oakville.
Right. Now, one of the difficulties that I see when I talk to people is they have a very hard time grasping how long ahead in the future things get planned. So for example, North Oakville began being planned in the 90s, like around 1995. And it only started, we really only started to see a lot of construction up there that people would, enough so that people would notice it, maybe 5-6 years ago. So, that's an amazing gap between when you lay out a plan and when it starts showing up. And the town doesn't have a lot of control over when it shows up, but we do have this duty imposed by the province to lay it out so that it could happen. And I say that by way of setting up the question, we're in the middle of planning right now that growth that you're talking about, the 1.1 million, that's between 2031 and 2051. I mean, so that's for a period that doesn't start for another 10 years and then carries on for the next 20 after that. We're literally planning 30 years into the future. And I'm wondering, how loose a plan does that need to be in order to have, surely there has to be some flexibility, or is the province not that flexible?
The province sets out that forecast as to where we have to go. And so our work with Halton region is really to determine how we're going to accommodate that amount of population. So in terms of being flexible, how it hits the ground and how we then work through our official plan review program to make sure that we are then shaping that growth into those new areas. That is the exercise that we then go through with the public and with council over the next couple of years to make that growth in a way seem more tangible. How are we ensuring that it's not just population and density, but what are all those supporting features that you need in a community to accommodate that population, whether it's the community centers, the schools, the parks, etc. All of those need to be taken into consideration as well. And we need to be able to identify where those are going to go as we are going to be building out over the next 30 years.
Yeah. Now, literally, we're planning the town that our children, our young children of today will inherit. That's what we're doing. And the two things that I hear most often from people when they contemplate the idea that we're going to grow that much is, oh my God, we won't have enough green space. And another question is, how are we going to afford all the facilities that we're going to need for the increased population? And that's why Nancy's here, because Nancy's going to help explain just how strong we are fiscally and how those costs, where those costs come from. Literally, almost all of them come from growth, with a small portion hitting us, the taxpayer. Nancy, how would you summarize our strength and our ability to face that future?
So we are in a very good financial position. We have on our own side, we have very healthy reserves, and we are planning for the future. We look at our finances over the long term, not just over the next 2-3 years. On the growth side, we are very careful. We go through the process of development charges. We've always looked to maximize our growth revenues that we can get to support the growth that we'll need for our communities. So when Gabe talks about the community centers and the parks and things that we need in these communities to make them complete communities, we are planning for that. So we start with the master plan process, and that's a real opportunity for residents to get involved as well, and what they see as the needs and the requirements for the community as we go forward. From those master plans, we identify all the growth needs for the community over that planning horizon. And then we follow through a prescribed process to ensure that we can actually collect development charges from that future development so that we can afford to put those parks and community centers, roads, et cetera, in place for the residents to enjoy when they move in.
Right. We hear from there's maybe 5 or 6% of any population are out there using their bicycles. That's a pretty well researched stat, but they have a very loud voice and they're very energetic. I guess if you're going to ride your bike around, by definition, you're an energetic person. And so we hear a very energetic pressure from that part of our population that we've got to have more bike lanes faster, like yesterday would be too late. So how do we handle that? I mean, we call it an active transportation master plan. And how far out does that go?
That goes out, I think right now we plan to 2031, but it does go out beyond that. And it is quite an aggressive plan through our capital forecast to ensure that we've got the funding. As we're widening roads, we're looking at putting bike lanes in and looking at where they need to go, and to try and get a complete connected route for cyclists. So that does go out. It's certainly in our 10-year capital plan, and it goes out beyond that. In our development charge study, we did put it out to 2031 when we did our population estimates and looked at that growth. And we'll be planning well beyond that as we go forward and update those plans.
Yeah, now sometimes because we're a two-tier municipality, and a lot of people only know, I don't know, for whatever reason, they only know about the town, and maybe they choose to ignore the region. But Trafalgar Road, for example, is a regional road. Does the region of Halton also have an aggressive plan to build bike lanes? Are we going to see bike lanes on Trafalgar?
They do, and they're trying to ensure connectivity between the municipalities as well. So they do have quite an aggressive plan. It's a complete plan. As they widen roads, there will be bike lanes on them. You'll see that on Trafalgar Road. They're completing it now. Outside my window, I can see it every day. And so, yes, they absolutely do. And they work with the municipality on that plan. We've all contributed our input to it. And I think the residents will see that come to fruition over time.
Yeah, thanks. Now, the other thing that people press me about is more people, we need more green space. And I can't remember it right now whether it was you, Nancy, or you, Gabe, who told me that we have more green space per capita than anybody else in the GTA already. So, but I don't think that satisfies people who go, well, green space is good, so more green space is even better. So what are we doing about that?
I don't know, Gabe, do you want to start with that one, or?
Sure, I can and then you can correct me where I go astray. So we do have a healthy supply of green space within the municipality, but it's also the types of green space that we have. We have what I would say the platinum level of playing fields in the GTA, and we hear remarks about it all the time about the quality of our playing fields, our soccer pitches, our baseball diamonds, and that really is a testament to the efforts of our parks and open space staff. And in addition to that, we have a very robust trail system, especially in North Oakville. And together, those really create those opportunities for the public. And we've seen the use of those go up exponentially over the last year and a half as more people have been working from home, and the need to get out and find opportunities to enjoy nature. Those areas have really been experiencing a huge uptick in use by residents. As we are working through our parks and open space strategy currently, we are really trying to understand what are those longer term implications. And as we continue to increase our population, how are we ensuring that we are having the type of open space opportunities for residents? And that means that as we become more urban over time in our centers and our corridors and around Midtown, that doesn't necessarily mean it's more of that active green space. It means that we need to be cognizant of supplying the passive open space, like the urban squares, the plazas, etc. It could, because those are going to be those spaces which are at people's front door that they're going to be able to enjoy, where they don't have to get in their car and drive to a trail or to a ball diamond or something. They'll be able to have some of those spaces right in their neighborhood. So how we transition over time and how we are able to accommodate the needs of the different residents, that's going to be key.
Yeah. Well, I know from the air, the way Oakville kind of shakes out or looks is the further south you are, the bigger and leafier the trees are, the bigger and older the trees are. And the further north you go, the newer and smaller the trees are, which I'm trying to imply here, give it time, they'll get bigger. But on the active playing space and the parks and all of that, the further south you are, the less you have, and the further north you are, the more you have. We have a 200-acre park that's going to expand to 300 acres on Neagawa, just above Dundas, which is by far the biggest park we have. And we have, including the room to grow in North Park and some other parcels that I know about, we got at least 400 acres of, let me call it, future parkland in reserve. And so I'm confident that we've got a good plan in that area. So Nancy, when we come to the financing of all this, it all winds up sooner or later translated into taxes, one way or the other. And the costs, the builders regard our charges to build here, which we call development charges. They regard them as a tax, and I'm fine with calling it a tax, small t tax. And the more we can collect from them for the costs of growth, the less the property tax is for the existing residents. I've been struck by the fact that our tax rate, we've been able to cut that for 14 or 15 years straight. So we're growing, our costs are going up, and our tax rate is actually going down. Let's start with that. How come that happens?
So our tax rate, we determine each year through the budget process the amount of money that we need to collect to fund the town, all of its operating expenses, the capital budget, etc. That's the amount we need. And you take the assessment that you've got and divide that into it, and you end up with a tax rate. So as we're growing, our assessment base is increasing. We're levying the amount we need. It's not a cash flow increase. Some people think with current value assessment, as the property values go up, we collect more money. It's a cash win for the town or the municipality, but that's not the case. As the assessments go up, it ends up reducing our tax rate. So what you see over time, our assessment base has increased. The amount we need each year has been going up by a very steady marginal amount in line with inflation over the past several years. And so the actual tax rate has been decreasing each year.
Right. And then, the loveliest, craziest part of current value assessment is, you know, every time they do a reassessment, some people's property values uh, go up more than other people's. And if your property value goes up less than the average, what happens to your tax bill?
So your tax bill would actually go down in that case. When we have current value assessment, it's revenue neutral to the municipality. We calculate a notional rate. If your property has gone up more than the average, then you will see a slight possible tax increase. But if it's gone up less than that average, you actually get a reduction in your taxes.
Right. So now, what are our major capital projects that we're looking ahead to here? Um, uh, Gabe and Nancy, what are the big adds to the livability of the town that are up ahead?
So there are, I'll start, Gabe, maybe, and then you can jump in. There are some big ones in our capital forecast. We're finalizing the budget right now. It will come to council, to the budget committee in November. But there are some big projects in there. Council directed us to look at North Park and look at moving up the construction of the community center. So right now there is funds in there to do the design of North Park, which will include sports fields, all the outdoor amenities, as well as the community center and library. So you will see that in the capital forecast in the coming years. There's a significant amount of money in there for parks, green space, and a lot for roads as well, for road improvements, some of the major ones, roads and bridges. So I think residents will see quite a significant investment in the community in our capital budget over the next few years.
I'm myself looking forward to electric buses. It's been a
Oh,
dream of mine for 15 years. So, and what a saga it's been to make that happen. When I became mayor, I was told by a previous town manager, when I said, we need electric buses, he said, it's too bad, you can't have them. And I went, why not? And he said, well, let me show you the bus shed. So we have this facility where we store the buses, and it was an old decrepit thing. There wasn't enough room to store the buses in the winter, so you had to fire them up for an hour outside in the cold before you could send them out on the route in the winter. And he said, there's just no way you could service or handle electric buses because this is what we have to maintain them and store them in. And I said, well, then we need a new one. And we got a new one. It's pretty impressive. It's like 250,000 square feet, and we did that to be ready for electric buses. And now at last we're getting a few. Nancy, do you remember? Now I think it's 73, and I think it's not enough to have our full fleet. I think is more than 100 vehicles, but it's a real good start.
It is a very good start. I can't believe I didn't mention that. It's a huge piece of our capital budget going forward. We were very fortunate to get some ISIP funding to help us with the purchase of the electric buses. And the goal over the long term is to electrify the entire fleet. So we are starting off, I think the first buses will come in next year. I may have my timing not totally right. It'll depend on the time it takes to get them, but certainly over the next several years, you will see, there may be 70 in there now, but I know the plan is to go even further than that. And we're looking at how to fund it so that we get to a completely electrified fleet.
Yeah, ISIP is an acronym for a Canadian Ontario Infrastructure Grant Program. And I'm not sure I can decode it, but you try.
Oh, yeah. You know what?
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. All three levels of government actually manage to work together to the benefit of our common resident voter, and that's a good thing. Gabe, what big things are on the horizon for you? I can think of one that isn't necessarily a physical capital thing, but when we get done with this, let me call it the regional official plan review, which you planners call a municipal comprehensive review, uh, next July, then you've got, what, a year to walk us through the equivalent exercise for the local plan, because the local plan has to conform upward to the regional plan. What kind of, and this town loves public consultation, loves to participate. I think back to the 2 years that we had in 2007 to 2009 to create the Livable Oakville Plan. How are we going to cram into 1 year Oakville's taste for extensive public consultation?
Well, the one benefit that we've had over the last few years is that we started our official plan review program in 2015. So we've done a lot of heavy lifting up to now. We've been working with council to get a number of those studies completed. I mentioned the Luongo, which will be wrapping up very soon. The hospital district, we're deep into the throes of doing Midtown as well. So we've been able to make some really big strides, and working collaboratively with the region to try to work through their process and then how it's going to influence ours. And so then once, you're right, that does wrap up in July, then it'll be up to the town to determine what are all those missing pieces and how are we going to get those in front of council. And the public engagement piece is a key piece. It is not something that from a planning perspective, we just present to council and go, here you go, here's our best guess. That really does have to be informed by the public. And we take pride in being able to work with the public to really come up with a plan that is the community's plan and will help guide the growth over the next few years.
Yeah, you and your department have been terrific about coming to the monthly community leaders roundtable and consulting, and also at showing up at the annual general meetings of our many residents associations. And I think that's been very helpful in terms of making sure that what you're reflecting to the region reflects what the residents expect, and it's going to help shape the final step when we get after next July. I regret to say we're out of time, and I want to thank you very much for participating today. I want to thank you for watching, and I hope we'll see you next time.